Hi, good afternoon. This is your County Executive Ed Day. No, I almost didn't remember my name. Thanks, John. It's been a tough week, as I know we all know. I probably share the same experience as many of you with losing your refrigerator contents, et cetera, et cetera. But rearview mirror, it looks like right now. So let me just say good afternoon to you. Let's start a new day with a little bit of sunshine. And give you a quick update locally. Also, you might want to have a pen and paper. We do pretty much post everything you want and need at the end of the on the comment section when we're done here. But it's good to have a piece of paper and pen on hand. As of this morning, as far as our COVID-19 update is concerned, we have had a handful of hospitalizations. 3 people confirmed positive and 5 under investigation for testing positive for COVID-19. This is down from nearly 400 people that we had in April, so we've traveled quite a long way here. We do continue to see a couple of new positive cases each day. This serves as a reminder to us that COVID-19 is still a concern, and we cannot let our guard down. But these few cases that we are finding are well within the ability of our Department of Health to investigate and track our contact traces to prevent the additional further spread. Again, those contact traces, their job is to identify where an infected person has been, get to the places where he or she has been, and let folks know what has occurred and take the appropriate steps to minimize the additional spread of the virus. But it also reminds us of this. This is something that we have no vaccine. There is no known immunity that we're aware of right now. They are working on a vaccine as close as Pfizer right now here in Rockland County. But there are a number of efforts going on right now. But it tells us that we have to learn to live and adapt with this. That doesn't mean go out and party and be reckless. It means be smart, do some of the things that have been seemingly shown to work. Our infection rate is extremely low right now. We're going to get that a little bit later on. But we have to understand that we have to adapt to what we have here, because the alternative is do nothing and hide, and that is not something that really is an alternative, frankly. You can see all those latest numbers on the COVID-19 by visiting rocklandgov.com. That's rocklandgov.com. That is your county website, and going to the metrics and maps dashboard that you'll find on the links to on the main page. Now we're going to address some of the recent tropical storm and the response of Orange and Rockland utilities. First, let me be clear that county government, town government, village government does not have any direct control or oversight of public utilities such as O&R. That power lies solely and specifically with the New York Public Service Commission, the PSC, whose members are appointed by the governor of the state. Frankly, something I wish I would see more often when it comes to utilities. It always appears that when something goes awry, the PSC is called upon to do something. It would seem to me that we should have an ongoing effort by the PSC to monitor and make sure that things are being done. And we're going to get into that aspect of this in a moment, especially for those who were around for Superstorm Sandy in 2012. The fact is, right now, that said, our responsibilities are to you. We plan on having executive level meetings in a week with the executive team over in O&R, and we're going to discuss their less than sufficient response to this storm. I sponsored the same type of meeting in 2012 as a legislator. They came in after Sandy, and we'll be holding them accountable to the promise that were made at that time some 8 years ago. Topics I will be bringing up include assessment times, the outage map, and the accuracy of same, wire guards. How do we get our law enforcement personnel off duty of those wire guards? Mutual aid, something that's critically important in order to deal with crisis when it comes to utilities, and their tree pruning program. Also, proper forecasting and preparation for storms. That is critically important. As you know, this particular storm did make a westward turn, gave us rain stop much earlier than expected, so it was less of a rain event, but more of a wind event. But the bottom line is this. I get forecasts from our Florida Emergency Services all the time, and they look at different options, different storm tracks. That's something that has to be expected. So when you don't get caught by surprise. So we're going to discuss all these issues and see where they could do better. things that they did do, things they should do, and see what we can come to grips with here in Rockland. I'm not going to wait for the PSC to come down and do something because that could be a long, long wait. But look, I'm here to continue to work and advocate for our residents because frankly, ONOD must do better than they have. As an aside, I want to take a moment to acknowledge those line techs who are out there, those folks who are cutting trees down, our National Guard also, and let's not forget our police officers, our fire officers, our emergency medical service personnel, and also our 911 communicators, the ones who are on that phone when you call for help. They were extremely busy. They did an admirable job, and they frankly typically are the hidden part of emergency services, but they're critically important. I can tell you as a former police officer who has been in critical situations, calling into a radio for help or backup or getting assistance on a particular call for service. These folks are amazing at what they do. They remain calm when everybody else is really getting worked up over a shooting incident, for example. So my hat off to them and the work they do very quietly up at the Fire Training Center here in Pomona, and also those dispatchers who also work in the local departments. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to my Director of Communications, John Lyon. John, could we go over some of the questions?
Okay, so we're going to stick with the storm for just a minute. A question came in asking about a mandate that was passed after Sandy that all gas stations must have generators. This person said this obviously did not happen. They only saw one gas station in New City that was open, and they sold out of gas fast, which they needed to fill their generators because they were out of power for 6 days. Why were there so many gas stations that didn't have power? Who's responsible? Can you tell us a little more about this issue?
I can give you some history of it because, again, in 2012, I went through the same thing trying to get gas for my generator. And also the little more recent storm we had, same thing all over again. I do remember Senator Carlucci talking, maybe introducing legislation, but he was speaking a lot about this. And, we did some research on this, obviously, so we can answer your questions well. The way it was conveyed to everybody was that every gas station will be required to have a backup generator. That is what we all understood, including the person who just sent in the question. What eventually passed, however, wasn't quite what was said it was going to be, and that's classic of Albany, unfortunately. It requires that gas stations located within a half a mile of highway exits or hurricane evacuation routes install a transfer switch that are required to deploy and install a generator within 24 hours of losing power during a fuel supply or energy emergency. So the only gas stations that were required in this piece of legislation when it all was all said and done were ones that within a half a mile of a highway exit. You can stop and let that roll around for a little bit, and you can see there probably not a lot right now, or hurricane evacuation routes. Also, and this is a classic disconnect with Albany. I can't be any more kind than that. They also talked about gas stations selling less than 75,000 gallons of fuel per month being exempt. Now, I don't know where folks in Albany have been, especially when it comes to Rockland County, but once we had Katrina and the other dynamics that occurred that widened the price of gasoline between New York and New Jersey, where pretty much the vast majority of people of Rockland will go into Jersey to buy gas, we did not have gas stations selling 75,000 gallons worth of gasoline. Maybe a Costco, maybe a Stop and Shop, maybe a couple of others, but pretty much there were no stations selling that amount of gallons of gasoline. So pretty much the legislation exempted pretty much all of vast majority of the stations, which again, when I was driving around during the last storm, trying to get gas for my generator, when I had a house as opposed to the apartment where I am in now, it was very difficult getting gas, just as you went through. So on the upside, chains of gas stations must have a transfer switch installed at an additional 30% of their stations that's under the same criteria by August 1st, 2015. So now here's what we can do. If you would like to look up your gas station and see if it's required to have a generator, we're going to make it simple. We're going to post a link to the Fuel New York Initiative website at the conclusion of this video. So you'll be able to see what promise that Albany made and see exactly what you got. And that usually is an eye-opener way too often than we care to admit.
Okay. And getting back into some of the questions about COVID-19 and the pandemic that's going on, a person wrote in, unfortunately their father passed away last night and they have to travel to Florida for the arrangements. What is the process when this person comes back? They did say that they are a first responder.
Right.
We know there's several different categories here.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there have been a lot of horrible stories during these past few months of the COVID-19 crisis about, difficulty burying your family, things of that nature, getting to nursing homes and the like. First of all, I'm very, very sorry to hear about the passing of your dad. But if you've traveled from within any of the designated states, and Florida is one of them that had a significant community spread, New York state law will mandate that you quarantine when you enter New York for 14 days from the day you left Florida. However, there are exceptions or exemptions, more accurately, for essential workers like you and first responders. Essential workers should seek diagnostic testing for COVID-19 as soon as possible upon arrival home to ensure they are not testing positive. That's number one. And that's a health issue to begin with. Essential workers should monitor temperature and signs of symptoms, wear a face covering when in public, maintain social distancing, clean and disinfect workspaces for a minimum of 14 days. So again, we get back to that mask protecting others from the spread of the virus. Essential workers, to the extent they can, are required to avoid extended periods in public, contact with strangers, and large congregate settings for a period of at least 7 days. We're going to post a link to the specific guidance from New York State in the comments section as the video concludes. If you have any additional questions, you can call the New York State Coronavirus Hotline at 1-888-364-3065. Again, 888-364-3065.
Okay. And a number of similar questions came in about the industries that are still not open. When can gyms, movie theaters, bowling alleys, these other industries, when will they be allowed to open?
I'm really sorry to say, but there is still not any timelines from New York State for the reopening of these types of businesses or any other industries that have been completely left out of the New York Forward reopening plan. And remember, these industries were originally in the plan under Phase 4. We have to get back to this whole thing again. Myself and other county executives, we continue to bring these issues up in our daily regional control room meetings and calls with New York State. We are in the Mid-Hudson region, 7 counties abutting Rockland, and we have not yet received any new information. It is a source of complete frustration and irritation to me and also my fellow county execs. I clearly understand the frustrations because we're going through it also, and your worries. How much longer can you hang on? But what happened to the original phase-in plan? Remember Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4. 2 weeks between phases. What was being told to us that we're going to flatten that curve out. We're going to reopen our economy, and that's what we're going to do. And as we get through this, if we keep our numbers low, we would open the valve up a little at a time. If we see a problem, we'll close it down. We developed indices in order to be able to do that. We have our GIS personnel with the health departments who can identify clusters almost immediately in real time. We have done everything right. Everything. We've not flattened the curve. We've dropped the curve. We are in the basement right now. There's no other way of putting this. Our infection rate is below 1, which is no spread, according to the R Live website. We are in a quicksand right now. There's no other way of putting this. But you know something? There's no reason why this should be going on. None whatsoever. By refusing to allow, for example, we brought this up. Restaurants right now are at 50% capacity. There have been no spikes, no reasons, nothing to be overly concerned about where we are right now. No reckless conduct, nothing. We raise a question: why can not restaurants open to 75%? Social distancing still in place. All the rules that have been asked for us to follow by the state. Why can't we open to 75%? We have no answer yet, and this is where it's frustrating. The bottom line is by refusing to allow these businesses to open, the governor is killing them. There's no other way I can put this. It is unacceptable. We are now 5 weeks into phase 4 of the reopening plan, and there's still no plans for these industries. And frankly, it's just not right, especially we were told very clearly there was a plan. And I'll be very clear, I acknowledge the governor for that first plan. It was well thought out, a couple of weeks in between, that was married up to the exposure rate and the infection rate, and it was well done. But we did 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just got stuck in quicksand. We're going nowhere. And it's unacceptable. There's absolutely no reason. If there was the smallest shred of reason why we have to stop our economy where it is right now, I would understand it. But there is absolutely no reason whatsoever. And this really has got to stop. And we are pushing for this on the calls we're making with the governor's staff. And that's not just myself, but the other county execs who are in the control room for the Mid-Hudson region.
Okay. And the last big question of the day, are there any updates for youth high-risk sports?
Right. Yeah, this is something that's kind of personal. I coached 20 years in Rockland County for our young people. I know how important it is to our young people and our families. But right now, there's been no timeline yet set for the return of high-risk youth sports. In terms of high school sports, a task force was established by New York State Public High School Athletic Association, PSAL, to provide guidelines for a restart, but a green light is required by Governor Cuomo before the game plan is officially put into play. The start of the fall season was pushed back already a month to September 21st, and the 2020-2021 Fall State Championships were canceled. Now, there is good news with this dark cloud. The students whose parents opt for remote learning will still be eligible for varsity sports. There was a question about that. So if your youngster is not going into school physically and is learning remotely, your youngster can still participate in sports. But once any of the further updates become available, we'll pass them along to you. But your local school districts and your schools themselves should be able to respond to any specific questions you have as well. And frankly, I think you'll get it quicker from them than you will from us. But we will still continue to bring this information forward just to make sure you're getting it. One other important item, and this really it gets lost in the shuffle with everything going on around here between the pandemic, our outages, our power outages, and everything else. The census, the 2020 census. I cannot begin to tell you how critically important this is, especially at a time where we are under significant fiscal challenge. Another fiscal crisis hitting Rockland that we're grappling with to protect everybody here in Rockland like we did getting out of the first crisis. But that census is key to getting funding from the federal government. More than $675 billion is distributed annually based upon census data. And those dollars go directly towards programs our residents depend on, health insurance, infrastructures, the things that oftentimes government puts aside and lets the next generation pay for. That's not what we do to our kids and our grandkids. We deal with the issues now. So we don't leave them with a bill to pay that's usually 3, 4, or 5 times the cost if we just grapple with it now. Our schools, nutrition support. This is just some of the things that this funding goes to. According to 2019 population estimates, there are 107,000 housing units here in Rockland County. At the current Rockland self-response rate of 66%, which is where we are right now, there are still more than 36,000 housing units that have not had their residents counted yet.
And I'd like to interject here a little bit because I just did get some updated math from our planning department.
Okay.
That 30.
You want to come around here and?
I'll stay
They
right.
want to know what you look like.
Maybe next time.
Okay, back to census data.
The 36,000 housing units who haven't responded yet, the census estimates that there's 4 people per household. And based on that number, we are missing out on $363 million a year from those people who have not responded yet.
$363 million in funding.
That's the difference between the 66% of people who've responded and the 100% of people who respond.
Okay, folks, by any numbers, unless you're at the federal government, then this doesn't sound like a lot of money, but trust me, it's a lot of money. These are all the programs of government. Our gross budget here in Rockland County is in the mid-$700,000 range. To give you some sense of what we're talking about, a lot of it is passed through, a lot of it is funding that comes from the federal government and from the state, a lot from the federal in particular. $363 million. Just think about that for a second. That's a significant amount of money. So I'm going to urge you, please take a moment and fill this census out. You can do this online by going to my2020census.gov. Again, my2020 census.gov, or by calling the numbers which we will post in the comment section. I'll give them to you so you have them, and then John will post them on the comment section. English speaking, 844-330-2020. Spanish speaking, 844-468-2020. Yes, all the last four numbers will be 2020. Government want to make it easy for us. For Haitian Creole, 844-477-2020. And for touch dialing, and for residents who are hearing impaired, 844-467-2020. But please, I can't emphasize this enough, how important this census is for you to just get counted. The census, the my2020census.gov, it takes 5 minutes, 7 minutes maybe, tops. Even somebody like me who does the 2 fingers tapping, doesn't take me a long time to take care of it. So please do that. You're helping all of us out here in Rockland County by doing that. We get our fair share. You've read the battling going on between the governor and the president about the fair and the Senate. What we get less than we give. Well, if we can't get counted, maybe we can balance that out a little bit and get some money back down here from the federal government. So you could help there. All right. So with that, again, I know it's been a tough week for everybody. Hopefully your situation's improved a bit. And we will be following up on the shortfalls that we did see in the storm response and get back to you with some results on that. I'm hopeful that the State Public Service Commission does its job and does something similar and does an assessment of not just obviously Orange and Rockland, but the region. That's what their job is. And as far as the COVID-19, remember, proper hygiene seems to be the cure right now, and that's the best cure we have. Cover your face, maintain social distancing, and if you can't maintain social distancing, make sure absolutely you have a face covering on, and wash your hands. Again, things we taught our kids, things we were taught when we were kids. Just continue to do that. We're doing fine there, and again, anything you can do to advocate for our local economy, our local businesses, please do it. We have some wonderful people who are neighbors of ours. Those are the ones who, and I've said this before, those are the ones who sponsor some of those journals for your kids' sports. They're the ones who will contribute to a cause for something very important to you. They're the ones who have volunteer firefighters and EMTs who go out the door in time of crisis, all right, and tend to your families, your neighbors. Don't forget that. Those small businesses are an integral part of what we are all about in Rockland County. It is who we are. So please, whatever you can do to advocate as a citizen of this county, please do so. Those businesses need our help. So thank you. With that, until next week, you have a wonderful afternoon, evening, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you.